You're listening to Worshipology with Kurtis Parks, a biblical, practical, and spiritual conversation about living and leading worship. Let's lean into today's episode.
Well, hey, thanks so much for tuning in to Worshipology. This is a podcast geared towards worship leaders, worship teams, singers, songwriters, and creatives, and we're talking all things worship. And today on the other line, I've got Jason Brown, a worship pastor in Virginia Beach. Jason, say what's up, man.
Come on. What's up? What's up, my man? Hey.
Dude, it's great to have you, man. And we've kind of had so many circles that have overlapped. And of course, we've gotten to meet a couple times. I was in the D.C. area while you were in the D.C. area.
That's right.
And both of us kind of doing great things at great churches. And man, just kind of for our listeners, bro, just give a little snapshot of the Jason Brown story, man. How did you get involved in music and in worship leading? I know there's so much there. Can't wait to unpack so many great things in your story. But man, yeah, just give a little context on who you are and what you're doing, man.
Kurtis, thank you for having me on. Oh, what a blessing and honor this is. Yeah, my story. So I actually graduated from Southeastern University.
Okay.
And my degree was like kind of, if I describe it, I can describe it to you, to anyone outside of the church, they won't like understand. But my degree is like a Bachelor of Science and Ministry of the Arts or whatever. So that's just a really decorated term for saying like anything that's like art related, music, production, like AVL stuff, whatever, script writing, theater, all that kind of stuff was all encompassing. And so that's what my degree is in. And then when I left college, ministry was the last thing that I actually wanted to do. And Wow. It was back when I graduated, the underlying sort of theme, it was spoken but unspoken, was, hey, if you're going to do ministry, you expect to work 60 plus hours a week, expect not to make a whole lot of money, so you probably want to get like a part-time job thereafter. And I was just like, I had like student loans, and I didn't want to be poor, and I didn't have a family, but I wanted to have a family. And when I had a family, I wanted to be able to like support my family and then like be around them too, right? So it was, I just decided to not do that. And so I went into I did like a non-ministry job. I went into sales. I worked at AT&T right when like the smartphone boom came. And so it was also like right in the heart of like the recession. So like people didn't have a whole lot of income to spend on other things or to have luxury, but what they could spend money on because it wasn't that expensive was cell phones. And so I got a lot of just real world work experience outside of church, and I did sales. I was decent at sales. Like when you're selling something, you're not really selling the product; you're actually really selling yourself. And to do that, like half the battle is just like not being a jerk, right? And so like I was
That's
like
true. That's true.
Right. Like I was halfway decent at that, and so it was cool. It was cool working at a non church and getting that sort of experience. Eventually, I moved into management, and I managed people. I had a staff of about 8 individuals, and so was able to get that under my belt. All the while, I still was serving at the local church. So
okay,
I would help out with worship, either with the band and then eventually singing and then eventually leading, but just at like a volunteer level. And I just loved it so much. And I think I always felt, even when I was in college, that a calling to lead worship or to share the gospel, right, of Jesus Christ. And I felt very much a calling to do that and to use music as the avenue in which I did so. And so to not do that full time, but to do that either at a part-time level or on a volunteer level was great. Mm-hmm. All while I was able to support myself and have a job. At some point in time, like God just had other plans, and I just felt the itch to move into full-time vocational ministry, and
Mm.
I took a huge leap of faith by leaving a job that I made a lot of money to pursue this calling. And long story short, it worked out. I got my first job at a church in Ashburn, Virginia, leading there as a director of worship. And then I was there for about 3.5, 4 years, give or take, in which I did worship. And then at some point in time had production under my umbrella of responsibility. And then God had other plans. So I moved on from that place, and God landed me and my wife in Virginia Beach, now at Grace Bible Church, where I serve as the music and creative arts director at the Lindhaven campus. And there is my 3.5 to 4 minute story.
Bro, and I know as a sales rep, you had to develop that pitch just like that, man. No, that's so good. I want to pause for just a moment because, there's such an interesting perspective that you have when you come from leading worship and being in the team and department as a volunteer to then stepping in as somebody who's paid staff and you're running it. Talk to me a little bit about what you were able to carry from your volunteer. Maybe there's a different appreciation and there's a different perspective that you have kind of coming from that world and then jumping in, because some people just go straight from college, they study worship and arts ministry and they go straight into full time.
Sure.
But you having that volunteer foundation, it's kind of like, oh no, I can kind of appreciate this from a different angle. Talk about that and maybe some of the nuggets that you carried in from the volunteer days to now full-time vocational ministry.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say the perspective is just a different wrinkle. And so like the idea of ministry, I mean, it's all about God and it's about people and it's about serving others, right? And loving others as God first served and loved us. And so that doesn't necessarily change regardless of if you're doing it as a volunteer or if you're getting paid to help sort of lead or facilitate or whatever. The different, I guess you kind of like landed on it. You do have a little bit more of an appreciation when like you're just doing it based upon just like you're passionate about it. And to be honest, like I love what I do and I'm very passionate about it still. It is different when you're getting compensated for it. You probably feel that as well. Or anyone assists in that position. There's a difference, but when you do it as a volunteer, so here's a catch. When you volunteer at a church, and if you're doing it the right way, essentially you are actually paying to serve, right? Like if you're tithing and giving, right? Think about that, okay?
Right.
Like if you're tithing and giving of your first fruits or whatever percentage or however much you do that God has called you to do, like you're sowing into that ministry and saying, hey, listen, I believe in the vision and the path forward that this church, this ministry is doing. I want to participate in my giving monetarily, and I also want to participate in my giving of my time and the skill sets and resources that God has given me. And so essentially you're doing that. And like, that's cool. And that's like awesome. And you get to see things and do things and be a part of things. It doesn't, I would say that sort of perspective and being on seeing things through that lens versus seeing things through the lens of doing it as a vocation is different. And I'm thankful that I got a chance to see both sides of it, right? I think that actually kind of helps me on a practical level in terms of how I love the people that volunteer, how I serve them, right? I've been where they're at, and so that also allows me at some level. I mean, the further I get removed from being a volunteer, and the further the longer I do it as a vocation, the less I have that sort of perspective, but because I at least have it, I can see it, and so that sort of helps with how I love, how I treat, how I serve those who serve with me at my church.
Well, I think that's such an important perspective to have, because I think we've all served in those environments where it's like, man, I'm not paid to do this, but you're yelling at me because I missed one chord, or you dropped me off the team because I was 3 minutes late or something like that. Like, yes, there needs to be a standard, and there needs to be a level of excellence, and there needs to be expectation, and all of that needs to be communicated super clearly so that there's no frustration or misunderstanding when it comes to all of that stuff. But I do think that there is something about loving the people that, yeah, they're doing 40 and 50 hour a week full-time jobs. Some of them have 3 or 4 kids. I just had lunch with a guy on our team today who's got 4 kids, and he's working like 3 jobs and holding it down, and he still is so excited to be at rehearsal here in about 4 hours, you know? So it's like, man, like that level of commitment, that level of not just passion, like you said, but even joy about it. Like, man, I can't wait to serve. And I think there's just so many ways that as creative arts pastors and worship pastors and leaders, like, man, we need to always be like remembering that not everybody gets paid to do this. Like, what are some of the ways that you found just through the years and being at a couple different churches that you've been able to really love and honor and appreciate some of your volunteers? And we weren't even going to go this direction, but your story just kind of really jumps out to me as like somebody, okay, I've been on this side, now I'm on this side. How do you kind of keep that gap super close and just love those people that are, they're giving up their time, treasure, and talent to be a part of this thing called the global church?
Come on, man. That's so good. Yeah. I would say you can never go wrong with proximity, right?
That's good.
Like if you truly care about someone or the individuals on your team, like you gotta want to be around them, you know, like, and that's a big deal. And so like, man, if I know when I was a volunteer, even now, when I feel most appreciated and most value when there's just time spent and intentionality, and however big or small that is. And so like, man, like the catch, and you get it. Listen, as someone who leads worship at a church and someone that leads people, I would imagine you don't have a whole lot of time. Like Kurtis, you have a family, right? Like you are a father and you are a husband and you are this and you are that and you're leading a podcast and there's not a whole lot of time. Time is a valuable commodity. If I can like give of myself and like allocate time towards individuals, no matter how much or how little that is, that shows appreciation. I think, man, people just, they see that and they appreciate it. I also know that like, man, like transparency and vulnerability is huge, right?
Wow. That's good.
I think transparency and vulnerability like always closes a gap, right? No matter at any level. And so like, I love being able to share with people. I mean, obviously within reason, right? But like, man, just having that exposure, and then the biggest thing that I think people will be bought in, and people will lean in, and they will go like to battle with you when there's trust, right?
That's good. Yeah.
And so like if I can earn someone's trust, however much that is, that helps. And of course the proximity and the consistency and just the willingness to invest in people, that helps and that fuels trust over time. And so it takes those conversations like, hey, like to my whatever bass player or electric player, hey, you played that lick not the way I think best serves the song and for the team. I will actually prefer that you do this. Here's the reason why. Or, hey, listen, you showed up late to this rehearsal, and when you did that, it communicated this, and I don't think that's what you want to communicate. And so therefore I want to hold you accountable as a leader and do that. When that you can do that, and that actually is more effective when there's trust established, right? And when there's like people actually know that you care about them.
There's so much good things in there right now. And I even think what you talked about with proximity and just wanting to hang out with your team and be with them, that, you know, time is the most valuable currency we have. Nothing will build trust like time and spending that. And then the transparency and vulnerability piece, closing the gap. So good, man. I think, one of the things, and I sent you this question kind of in the email, but, one of the things I wanted to talk about, you've kind of gotten to serve in a couple larger church settings, maybe even mega church is what we would call them. And, I'm currently, same kind of thing, about 3,500 people call Destination Church home. So, it's a larger church setting. And, I don't know if it was from, just all of the fallout with, prominent pastors over these last few years, or, obviously like, there's not a person that's listening to this podcast that probably hasn't heard of another podcast about a very famous church and the rise and fall of that church. But, there's kind of just this overall kind of cloud when it comes to just the culture and maybe even perception of mega church life. And I love just dispelling that, because I'm just like, look, it takes all kinds of churches. And if you're preaching Jesus, I don't care if you're rural, urban, I don't care if you're mega church or house church. Like, if you're preaching Jesus, people are getting saved and life change is happening. Yeah. Man, I'm for you. I'm with you. But what are some of those things that kind of you've seen, maybe even, in your personal journey, that have been blessings and just like, man, this is what's so needed and so valuable from a larger church setting? And then B, man, these are just some of the challenges. And if you're a worship leader at a mega church, hey, stick with it, or just understand that there are battles and blessings when it comes to this thing called full-time ministry.
I'm glad that you framed it that way, and just to realize, or that like there are challenges at every level, right?
Yeah.
And so like I remember going to the Drive conference, which is the North Point conference back in May of this past May 2022, and Grace Bible Church, they are North Point partners, and so we get a chance to like really like communicate and just talk with and just pick the brains of. North Point is like one of the largest churches in America. Like Andy Stanley, great, lots of resources, right? They're like the suburbs of Atlanta, so they get their pick of whoever they want,
right,
like to play music, and so that's like really fun and really awesome. And yet that place has challenges too, right?
Yep.
Resources and talent like doesn't wash away everything. There's challenges that even come with that. And so like I love how you frame that, because it can be easy. It can be easy to think, hey, I'm at a church of 100 people or 150 people. This is challenging. I'm alone in this. No one understands. Or the person who is of a 3,500 member church, how can that individual know what challenges are like to me and my resources of like a church of 100, right? And I would say like the challenges are subjective, and they're at every level. So the good thing, here's the cool thing about maybe an advantage of being a part of a larger church, like I guess whatever mega church, over 1,000, over 1,500. I'm not sure what the statistic is anymore for a mega church, but
I don't know either. Truth be told,
I stopped counting, and I stopped worrying about that a long time ago.
Once it's more than 4 people, I know there's going to be problems. So
perfect. So I think one of the advantages is, I mean, so like the resources are if you are a part of if you happen to be fortunate enough to be a part of a healthy organization that stewards resources well, like I think the advantage is you kind of get that. And so like if you could gain the trust of leadership and prove yourself excellent and the things that you've been given in charge to lead or whatever, or charge to participate in, just in general, with more people, there's more resources, right? And so that's kind of cool. Like your blank canvas becomes bigger to be able to do more, and that helps, right? Like some churches have a model where they're able to contract musicians or specific people, and like if you have resources you can do that. Some churches don't have that, and by the way, contracting isn't always the best depending on where you are. Like sometimes it's good to have homegrown a team that's like full of volunteers. Like there's different levels of commitment, but you at least have the option to do that when there's more resources. And also, like more people just means you get to meet more people, like, right? You don't have to like go so further outside of your your sphere of influence to meet people. More people means you get a chance to interact with more individuals. You have a greater opportunity to have sort of influence on a larger amounts of people. Now, in regards of the amount that you can influence, that's a whole nother conversation about like how rich your worship is, how deep your theology, how much you can lead or whatever. But in terms of the scale, that's built in. I would say this: the scarcity mindset is one that plagues churches big and small.
Come on, that's good.
And by that I mean, like the tendency, like you will come across individuals or people who want to hold on to things that were and cling tight, especially in times of uncertainty. And I'm not saying that in and of itself is a bad thing. What I am saying is, as creatives, like we're always going to want to push the ball forward, right? Like that's how God made us, right? We want to push the ball forward musically, how we write songs, how we produce, how we do production. Like that's how God wired us. And so like you're like more often than not, you will be going against some sort of the current where you are. And I say that's something that happens everywhere. And so like your ability to navigate that well, right? Is will like be one of the things that hinges on how long you stay at a particular place, how frustrated you may or may get, how you're able to lead your team and both lead upwards, right, to leadership, right? I think your ability to navigate that, and by the way, the larger the church and the more resources and the more you have to lose, it actually can become that much harder to do. Or if it's a smaller location and they've done things for the same things for a really long time, it's tough to sort of break that and navigate that. If that does that make sense, Kurtis?
That makes total sense, man. I think, from 2010 to 2017, my wife and I, we were at National Community Church, 8 campuses, Washington, D.C., large church, large ministry. And then out of that, we felt like God was calling us to plant. So we moved to Nashville. And basically go from a church of 5,000, we planted church. And honestly, I don't think our church, in the 5 years that I was lead pastoring at Bridges Nashville, I'm not sure we ever had more than 100 people. But then, here we are. And we were actually just talking about this before I hit record, but, talking through, Bridges is still continuing on. We're, new leadership, and it's amazing. And all of our staff is still down there, and it's incredible what God's doing there. But at one point we were even a house church movement. So we were meeting in homes all throughout really COVID 2020, 2021. And so, I think it strips you of this idea that the global and local church can only look like A, B, or C. It's like, man, there's so many different expressions of the church. Yeah. And, what is the church? But man, when you think about, okay, it was Christ that said, I will build my church and the gates of hell won't prevail against it. He wasn't necessarily talking about a building, or he wasn't talking about a format, or he wasn't even talking about Sundays at 10 a.m. He was talking about his people. And, wherever people gather with the common purpose of lifting up Jesus, that's church. And so I think my time as a house church pastor, church planter really taught me to value the different expressions of church. And then now finding myself here and just following the call of God to step out in faith yet again. And here we are at Destination Church and just south of Richmond, Virginia, and taking the mindset of a pastor, and not just a song leader, not just a worship leader, but really a pastor of people. And you said it, we get to lead people. It's about God and it's about people. And I think just realizing that, there's going to be challenges. There was challenges at a multi-site. There was challenges in house church. It's like you're really up close and personal with people. And then here I am in a new city, new environment. And yes, there's definitely challenges here. But I once heard a pastor say this, Jason. He said, new levels means new devils. And I never forgot that, man. I think if you're looking for a place to go where it's like, hey, I just want to go to a church where I can hit cruise control and all I have to do is show up on Sundays and lead a couple songs on acoustic. Number one, I think that's almost like unbiblical to do that, because if you're going to place yourself in an environment where you're never going to be challenged, I don't know if like that's really what God's talking about when the scriptures tell us to go from glory to glory. And, you know, God never has less for us. He's always calling us out to more faith, to more trust in him, more belief. And so, you know, I think there's something unbiblical about just, you know, and we've all done it. I mean, I must have said it, Jason, during 2020, I must have said, man, I just want to move to a cabin in Pennsylvania on a pond in the woods, you know, like, and still that sounds pretty appealing to me. But I think there's just something about like, no, we were designed. There is a godlike DNA in us to go after it and to advance the kingdom and to take ground. And there's a pioneer spirit that I feel like God's placed in his church and in his bride, that, man, we're here to redeem. We're here to take back what the enemy stole. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I think you're hitting it right on the head. That scarcity mindset, bro, that's so good, because it doesn't matter if you're at a mega church or a tiny church. That scarcity mindset, it is a mindset. Like it can just grab a hold of you in any environment. And I think you have to realize that, no, we serve a God who owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. And by the way, he owns the hills.
Let's go. Let's go.
I mean, there's nothing he can't provide in any season. So, dude, I love that, man. I think there's so much gold there. Hey, listen, just in our last few minutes, man, this is something I've been asking everybody this year. Jason, man, what's the Holy Spirit speaking to you these days? What is he stirring you up for? Man, maybe it's just in your personal life, or maybe it's something that you feel like God is speaking to you for the body of Christ. But man, I would love to know that.
Just full disclosure, and transparency. 2022 was a pretty rough year for me and my family. We my mom, like she's not doing well. Like my mom's in like a nursing home, and she's got like early onset dementia. And so having to sort of wrestle with all of that, and also being like I'm her only son. And so like I've had to bear the weight of the logistics and the responsibilities of her finances, and just while her health is declining, and like she's in Frederick, Maryland, and so that's like about 4 hours from where I'm at. And so it's just that was tough all last year. And then my wife and I we've and this is like this is public knowledge. We shared this on social, so it's not like it's not like I'm deviating from a game plan that we've had not tell people, but we've gone through like multiple miscarriages in 2022, and right. And so like my wife, she lost a job. Now she started her own business. And so like it was kind of like 2022 was just a whirlwind of emotions and just battling through different things, and really honestly like my faith being tested. And so like there were nights, days in which I was like, man, God, like do you even exist? Right? What's happening? Right? Like, I'm reading about your faithfulness, and I am reading that you are near to the brokenhearted, and I don't feel you. And the faithfulness that I've read about through the millennia that people have recorded and talked about and sung about, I'm not seeing that in my life or my family's life personally. Like, God, where are you? And so like when you ask the question, like what's the Holy Spirit has been speaking to me, after the Christmas season was over, and we all, if you are a worship leader or if you serve in anything in the church, Christmas is just like bang, bang, bang. Things, parties to be at, rehearsals, right? Christmas songs, which is like different. Like it's just a whole lot that happens in Christmas. Once we got through that, and I had like about a week and a half or so just to sort of process and think about and pray through the last year. I remember God. I remember this God is speaking to me, and like the word, ironically, the word gratitude,
Wow.
came to mind, and it kept coming. It kept coming back in my devotional times. It kept coming in my times of praying. And even in my times of personal and corporate worship, like just gratitude, just that word gratitude kept coming over and over in my mind and in my heart. And I'm just kind of like, yo, God, like gratitude, like I don't feel like I don't feel grateful from what I just came through. I feel worn down. I feel tired, weary, right? Those are the things I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And yet the Holy Spirit is just reminding me of gratitude. And then I remember just in a time, this is how I am. Like I don't have these like these revelations, but I'm driving in my car and I'm listening to a song by the 1975. Okay. Right. And they're very much like non-Christian, but I love the band and it's fantastic. And I don't know what happened, but it was like late at night and I'm jamming and like I'm listening to them. And like, I remember God just speaking to me and saying, "Hey man, I still love you. I'm still here. Like I'm here. I'm still for you and I'm still with you. I am near." And I was just like, okay, all right. I don't understand this. And God, you're gonna have to help me see you like clearly through this lens of hurt and pain that I have. But please, God, help me. And like just the reality of the fact that, yeah, man, 2022 was tough. And I'm sure for like the people who will listen to this podcast, like 2022 may have been, or 2021 or 2020, especially whatever, may have been tough.
Right.
But like, I know for me personally, I can speak this for me personally. God is very present and is very he is real, and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to struggle with my faith or have doubts, but he is near to the brokenhearted, and he is here to comfort me in that time. And I want to say that for like those who are listening, like you may be struggling, you may be going through something, you may be having a difficult time in your ministry. God is still for you. He still loves you. But yeah, I had to wrestle with that. And by the way, I'm still wrestling with that, right? Like the story is not over for me. Like my mom is not like, unless a miracle happens, she's not going to get better. Like she will slowly her health will slowly deteriorate in what she's not like, right? Like God, like the miscarriages that my wife and I that she had that we went through, those won't be wiped away, right? They happen. And so like I'm still wrestling through that, but just the idea that God is near and he is here, and that like the things that I do get to be a part of, are I can be grateful and have gratitude even in the midst of weariness and hurt.
Wow. Well, first off, I just want to say, man, thank you for opening up and sharing that. That's powerful, man. And I do think there's a lot of people that will resonate with hearing that and just walking through the struggles, but to know that God is still with you, he still loves you. That's huge, man. And you know, it's kind of wild because last week on the podcast we had Brian Gurney, and I asked him this question. He actually shared with me the verse, 2 Corinthians 4, verse 7. We now have this, the jars of clay verse. We have this treasure in jars of clay. And he said, he's just kind of felt like God was speaking to him about that verse. And what's crazy, Jason, is as you were sharing this, I didn't even know what scripture this came from, but I just, the verse that, we're pressed on every side, we're crushed but not destroyed, knocked down but not abandoned. And anyway, so I looked up that verse as you were sharing that, and it's literally the very next verse. It's 2 Corinthians 4, verse 8. And so I don't think it's any mistake that, Brian was sharing that was the one verse God laid on his heart. And here you are sharing. And I felt like the Lord just wanted me to share that with you and with our listeners, that it says we're pressed on every side by troubles, but we're not crushed. We're perplexed, but not driven to despair. We're hunted down, but never abandoned. We get knocked down, but we are not destroyed. Through suffering, our bodies continue to share in the death of Christ, so that the life of Jesus may be seen also in our bodies. Yeah. And dude, you've lived that out. You've lived that faithfully. man, so many great things in this conversation. I cannot wait for people to just be encouraged and strengthened in their faith by it, man. Jason, we're going to put some stuff in the show notes, maybe some music that you guys have been doing or just some contact info. Anything else you want anybody to know?
I mean, yeah, no, just my encouragement to all creatives who are out there, all leaders, to continue to press on. And yeah, like this is an awesome podcast. Share, like, listen. I'm trying to think. Are you looking for like a personal plug or just like last word?
Dude, anything, man. If you're doing, we just want to know about it, man. Like if you're releasing any music
Gotcha.
or
Cool.
if you guys are writing or recording. I mean, I'd love to just include some stuff in the show notes that can help people connect with you.
No, that's good. I would have felt like a jerk if like you were like looking for like last words and not like shameless promotion. Like oh,
I mean, that was great, dude. No.
No, cool. I mean, sure. I haven't. Man, I'll be recording again at some point in the year. But I mean, there are some stuff. God, if you search Jason Brown on Spotify, all the digital platforms, whatever, and search God of Heaven, that's my like most recent release that came out. Wow. 2 years ago. Yeah, I need to get back in the studio, Kurtis.
All right, man, it's time. It's time, bro.
But yeah, or you can
go.
just like, I would love to like connect with you or whatever. If you just want to follow me at It's Jason Brown on Instagram or like whatever, TikTok, whatever, Facebook. We'd love to connect with any and all. But yeah, this has been awesome.
Awesome, man. Jason, thank you so much for your insight, your wisdom, and your time, brother.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You've been listening to Worshipology with Kurtis Parks. To learn more and to find resources for worship leaders and teams, you can visit kurtisparks.com.